Today in the media conference with Lal Goyal, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And as you all are aware, the corona returns, corona came back to India. And not only India, in many parts of the world. So today's our topic is COVID returns, challenges and solutions. Coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19 is a contagious disease caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. The first case was identified in Wuhan, China in December 2019. The disease has since spread worldwide, leading to an ongoing pandemic. Now, COVID returns. On 10th April 2021, that is yesterday, India registered 1,52,682 cases in comparison to day before yesterday, when the new cases were 1,44,829, which has taken the country's cumulative tally past 1 crore 35 lakhs cases. 837 lost their life, thus total death due to corona raised to 1,69,304. According to health officials, India has administered 9 crore 80 lakhs 75,160 vaccines doses across the country as of 10th April 2021, that is till yesterday. And to discuss this very, very important issue, that is COVID returns, challenges and solutions, we have a very elite medical experts of their own fields panelist with us. And I would like to invite my first panelist guest. He is Dr. Ramen Goyal. Dr. Ramen Goyal is MSFRCS, is the Director of Center of Excellence in Bariatrics and Metabolic Surgery, Wokhart Hospitals, Mumbai. Dr. Goyal is the former president of Indian Association of Gastrointestinal Endosurgeons, IAGES. Dr. Goyal is the associate editor of Journal of Minimal Aesthetic Surgery. Dr. Goyal is a renowned bariatric surgeon based at Mumbai. He has published many research articles and book chapters. He has also helped formulate national guidelines for surgical practice during COVID times. Welcome, Dr. Goyal, on our show. Dr. Goyal, you are aware about COVID. We have few, rather I can say, a number of media conferences with you on this subject in the last year. And we were all expecting that the COVID will go and it will not come back. But now COVID returns, and it has come with a bang because it has broken all the records what we have seen in 2020. Now, is it scary, Dr. Goyal?
Good morning. I wish I was not called again on Corona on your program, because I thought that Corona is, as everybody believed, is almost over end of January this year. But unfortunately, we are all again here and discussing this again. Whether it's scary, yes, I mean, the numbers are going up, as you just mentioned, and numbers are likely to go up many times more than this. Let's be realistic. Numbers are bound to increase because this time we have different variants, and there are multiple variants in our country. And this is going to keep on increasing exponentially. And we have not seen the numbers coming out of big states like Uttar Pradesh, like Bengal, like Tamil Nadu, as those numbers are likely to come because of the after effects of election and Kumbh Mela. We are going to have a very large number. But as a doctor, am I scared? Not really. We are in a different zone this year. You know, last year was when the pandemic started, everybody was scared because we were dealing with unknowns. This time we are in a much better position. And that's why you see the governments are not panicking. And so I think uh, to public at large, the message should be very clear to be extremely careful. But whether it is going to cause a major catastrophe in number of deaths, yes, of course, it's going to cause a lot of deaths. But I believe this is the way country is going to be for next few months. The numbers will keep on increasing, and there'll be uh, state-wise management protocols which will be followed, and this is how we are going to live maybe for next 1 year or maybe more.
Uh, but Dr. Goyal, this time, as for the figures which are emerging, the number of deaths are less. So is it that this variant of this coronavirus is less dangerous, or we are still on the tip of iceberg and we will see more deaths in come days to come?
So I think the what is happening in our country is that we are trying to have a narrative which keeps everybody happy. So when the numbers go up, we talk about deaths. When deaths go up, we talk of deaths per million. But as doctors, we should be very, very true about the what we are seeing. So I think the number of deaths are less because this time the growth has been very fast. And by now, everybody knows that deaths are generally reported 2 to 3 weeks after the disease, after somebody gets infected. So if 100% gets infected today, whoever is going to die, they will die after 2 to 3 weeks. So today's number and comparison with the deaths is not the real picture. The real picture emerges maybe a month later compared to today's number. But what happens by the time we reach 1 month later, our numbers will be, let's say, 2.5 lakh. And then we are seeing death 1200 and we say our deaths are less. I don't believe in this. The realistic thing is that people are dying. The deaths will keep on increasing as the numbers will increase. Last year, at the peak of numbers, we had about 98,000 patients and about 1,200 deaths. Suppose we retain our numbers at 1.5 lakh for 1 month continuously, our deaths will exceed 1,200 a day. So it is just a statistical jugglery that is being engaged into to keep to make sure that there is no panic. But I think people are now matured enough. Our countrymen have always been matured enough to see the real thing, and I do not think that this is less virulent or less dangerous than last COVID epidemic that we saw in 2020.
One very interesting thing is emerging is that Maharashtra, although it came last time also, but that time Dharavi factor was there. But this time, across Maharashtra, all the cities of Maharashtra are in the numbers are increasing like anything. Why it is like this? Why only Maharashtra? The adjacent states or other states is their eating habits or their living style is different than the other state people. That's why the Maharashtra is having more number of cases, or what is the real reason, Dr. Goel? Can you just explain us?
So, nobody really knows the real reason why it started in Maharashtra or why Kerala is so much affected initially with Maharashtra. But what has been seen is that some cities, not Mumbai, some cities of Maharashtra and Vidarbha region had this imported strains, and those cities were the first to be locked down because the government was aware that there are strains which have come and the disease spreading. Even though the numbers were less, those cities were put on lockdown. And now those strains probably why? Because we are not doing genomic sequencing as much as it should have been done or should be done even now. So those strains which spread much faster, they are spreading. So it started spreading from Vidarbha, maybe some part of Kerala, and now it is starting to spread all over Maharashtra. And then, as you see, in different parts of the country, Punjab was also very much affected. and now Delhi and other states are getting affected. So I think it's just a matter of time. This is getting replicated exactly as what happened last year. The disease mainly started from Maharashtra and Kerala, and then it spread all over the country. So it has nothing to do with living style. It's just, I believe, the movement of people across borders who come to these states more frequently.
Okay. Now, before I will put a next question to you, I just want to read some facts about the vaccine. A COVID-19 vaccine is a vaccine intended to provide acquired immunity against severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, the virus causing coronavirus disease 2019. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, there was an established body of knowledge about the structure and function of coronaviruses causing diseases like severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, and Middle East respiratory syndrome, MERS, which enabled accelerated development of various vaccine technologies during early 2020. On 10th January 2020, the SARS-CoV-2 genetic sequence data was shared through GISAID, and by 19th March, the global pharmaceutical industry announced a major commitment to address COVID-19. In phase 3 trials, several COVID-19 vaccines have demonstrated efficacy as high as 95% in preventing symptomatic COVID-19 infections. As of April 2021, 13 vaccines were authorized by at least one national regulatory authority for public use. 2 RNA vaccines, the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine and the Moderna vaccine, 5 conventional inactivated vaccine, BBIBP COR-V, CoronaVac, Covaxin, WIBP COR-V, and Covivac. 4 viral vector vaccines, Sputnik 5, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, Convidecia, and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and 2 protein subunit vaccines, Epivac Corona and RBD Dimer. In total, as of March 2021, 308 vaccine candidates were in various stages of development, with 73 in clinical research, including 24 in phase 1 trials, 33 in phase 1 and 2 trials, and 16 in phase 3 development. The COVID-19 pandemic in India is part of the worldwide pandemic of coronavirus disease 2019 caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. Now, in this case, when we are having so much vaccine, one more figure I would like to give is that in India now, the vaccination is taking place, but there are reports about the shortage of vaccines, which are appearing, and especially from Maharashtra. Now, my question to you is, vaccine availability has become a major national issue now. What is the way out?
I think all the governments are trying to sort it out. What is required is transparency. That's what I have been saying. When we underestimate the intellect of ordinary citizens, this is what happens. If we talk openly about the numbers that are available and the numbers that we can vaccinate, so then this confusion will not be there. Now, there had been transparency issues at various levels. In 2019, government changed the regulation that if a drug is approved by a recognized body in any other country, the drug can be used in our country without Indian trial. Now, that could have given a very big flip to approve vaccine at an early stage, various vaccines, whether it's Pfizer, Moderna, Sputnik, whichever vaccine has been accepted by FDA or European authorities, could have been directly given entry and would have reduced the pressure on Serum Institute and Bharat Biotech. So I think that was one of the reasons, and that can still be used. That law exists, and the people are aware. The second thing was that when we approved the Bharat Biotech in a little bit of hurry, that created a mindset, a doubt in people's mind. And that is why healthcare workers probably took time to get vaccinated. So that is the second place where which created hesitancy in people's mind. Third thing is now that when we say on one side that we have enough vaccines available, on other side we are aware that how many are we vaccinating on a daily basis. So there is a data, and since the data is only coming through media and not through the official sources, it's little difficult to make an interpretation. But the data in the media shows that country is producing about 22 lakh vaccines a day, while the people who are getting vaccines were about 33 lakhs a day. So if we have a shortfall of about 10 to 11 lakh vaccines a day, there is no question of denial that we are short of vaccines, and we need to make up that. So I think the lot of confusion that's happening is by living in denial. Elections are over now, almost over. So now we can come out openly and talk about it, and we should start accepting it. So I think a quick approval of vaccines which are approved outside, which are accepted by the regulatory bodies outside, can suddenly increase the numbers in our country, and talking openly about vaccination and avoiding situations. Very recently, just 2 days back, I saw that the expiry of vaccines were increased, which was denied by WHO. So I'm sure the drug controller of India is a very honest team, and they have gone through the data. But what happens is that this kind of ad hoc decisions can have a implication on the vaccine acceptance. So I believe the way out is bringing absolute transparency, and then there is less of confusion, and will be, people will accept that they will have to wait for vaccine, and they will happily wait for it, and that is the only way out.
Uh, okay, but Dr. Goyal, like UK, they have appointed one person who is looking after the vaccine only, and some terms them as a vaccine minister. Now, don't you think in India also require a person of not less than cabinet minister rank only for this department, vaccine department, separately from the Ministry of Health, so that he or she can take a decision in consultation with the PMO directly, so that this situation which is now prevailing, because the media report says that for now many of the states are reporting that the shortage of the vaccine, and as you know, the human tendency is once they come to know about the shortage, the more and more people, because 1 week before the condition was that the government was pursuing everyone to go to the vaccination center, and people were not interested. But now the situation has changed. Everybody wants to go for the first dose or for the second dose. The vaccine is not available. What are your views about this, Dr. Goyal?
I don't think we need a vaccine minister for this. We have enough ministers already. There is a drug controller general of India, about whom I heard very good, that he's a wonderful person, a very ethical person. So I think that is not really required. We have systems in place. Only thing is, they should be allowed to work, and the decision should be based on merit. And if that is there won't be a problem. The vaccine cannot be approved without adequate data, because otherwise what happens is that we saw that Brazil has said that this vaccine from India is not acceptable for various reasons. Now that kind of thing puts the entire country in a bad light. So when we do something and we say we are doing it in the interest of the public, we need to see that it doesn't cause at least any harm to the public and to the nation.
Okay, but doctor, we have seen the cases for the public, but now in the reports are coming in the media that even doctors are getting infected after receiving vaccines. How are healthcare workers coping with the risk of infection, doctor?
Okay, so I think healthcare workers are really worried this time. They are worried because if some of the vaccines do not, or most of the vaccines do not cover all the variants. Sorry. So, and since we most of us have been vaccinated, we are working with patients, and there is always a risk of catching COVID with a variant this time. So I think the risk of a serious disease is definitely there, and how the doctors are taking, how they are managing, because there is no other way out. They have to manage. But the thing is, good thing is that vaccines cover the severe disease. So catching infection is bound to be there, as we are working with COVID patients, but it is likely to avoid a serious disease, and that is probably an assurance of safety for healthcare workers. So I think uh, the risk of infection and risk of severe disease are two different things. Risk of infection remains. And since there is not much information about the disease, the pattern of disease of South African variant, especially, which is partly there in our country, that is a matter of concern, especially to us.
Because there is a report which has come today only in the media that the South African variant, there is a problem, and even the Pfizer is not being able to. I don't know what about our Covaxin and Covishield, whether they will be able to resist or will be effective on the South African variant. What you say about that?
No, so that was decided quite early, that AstraZeneca vaccine is not effective against South African variant, and that's why South Africa canceled their purchase order with the Serum Institute. So I think that is something that that's a matter of detail, but at the moment, yes, it is not covering that strain.
Okay. Now, home quarantine, because it's happening nowadays that people are taking at a home, and even the government is also saying that if you are not serious, if you don't require oxygen or ventilator, please don't come to the hospital. So now, what is your opinion, home quarantine or hospital treatment, which is better?
So I think this is a serious disease, and right from beginning, people say that if you have COVID, you should be in hospital care. So the person who gets a disease doesn't need only symptomatic treatment. Person needs to be assessed for many other things, which are like how is this blood flow, either the inflammatory markers which have gone up or down, and so hospital care is definitely preferable. Now, at what stage home quarantine came in 2020? This came when hospitals were beds were not easily available, and that is the time when it was advised that those who have a mild symptoms, or who have minimum symptoms, they can stay at home. But that meant hospital care at home. That did not mean that you are not supervised, or you remain under your own family person's treatment, that may, or a WhatsApp treatment. That meant that you are under a care of a medical practitioner who is supervising you and getting and taking care of your investigations and treatment. But over a period of time, because of the, as we all call it, a WhatsApp university, those prescriptions have circulated, and families have started believing that they don't even need to consult a doctor, and they don't need to get a treatment or a test done, because they say, what are doctors doing in the hospital except this treatment? No, that's a bad thing. Ultimately, if in a city there are enough hospital beds, I would say every patient should go to hospital and get managed. But let's say in a city like Mumbai today, or as we saw what is happening in Indore yesterday, where people died in ambulances waiting for a bed. Uh, those are the situations where hospital beds should be used for serious patients, and mild patients should be managed at home. So I think it's a very important differentiation that I'm trying to say. Even if you are trying to manage your relative at home, please make sure a good quality physician is supervising on a daily basis. They don't need to come, but at least get the test done, treatment changed, and then to manage them, because these patients need long-term care and acute care, so they don't have after recovery heart attacks or after recovery kidney failure or brain strokes. And that can be avoided if these things are managed during their COVID infection and they are diagnosed at that time.
Now, in the last, your any suggestion to the government and advice to public?
I think public is over advised. Everybody is saying the same thing for 1.5 years and also blaming them for this disease, which is not fair. People have got tired. I am also tired of using mask every day, even though I'm a surgeon. But I think that it's of no use to giving further advice to public. They all know it, and there is nobody in the country who doesn't know about what to do. What is required as far as the government is concerned, I think it's better that we move out of the political environment. Let the experts talk. We have enough experience of managing COVID for 1.5 years in Mumbai, in Lucknow, in Delhi, and in different parts of the country. It is the time that government gets these experts together rather than the media channel getting them together. Say, what is your experience? And let the experts decide a protocol. So I'll tell you, when I got my COVID, I was in hospital, even though I had mild symptoms, and I had a course of remdesivir, because the Mumbai experience says that if you get remdesivir in first 5 days, even with mild symptoms, the disease doesn't become severe on 7th or 8th day. Now, this protocol I don't see in certain parts of North India, because this experience, Mumbai experience by very senior physicians who are managing ICU patients, has not been shared within the country. And same thing is with plasma therapy. So there is a very senior physician who is very well known in the country, who says that if plasma is given on day 3 or day 4, it reduces the severity of disease on day 7th or day 8th. Now the question is, this kind of knowledge exchange is hardly happening. What is happening is media questioning on the way the narrative wants to be created. And this experience will save lives in Bharej or in Lucknow or in Nainital or in Dehradun. But this is not happening. So when I say the advice to government is, let healthcare workers manage the disease, bring them together. You have phenomenal amount of logistical things available, like what we are doing. But bringing if you're only trying to create a narrative, a positive narrative, these are the things which can really save life and not the positive narrative. So I think this is my advice, and I hope that this country gets better soon. And though I am an extremely optimistic person, but this time I'm really worried. And I wish all of us all the best. I'm sorry I had to leave at 11 o'clock sharp for an important meeting. That's why I requested Mr. Goyal to start with me first. So thank you so much. Thanks for having me once again here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Goyal, for giving your time. I know that you have an important meeting to attend from 11 o'clock. So thank you very much. I'm sure what you have mentioned has enlightened our viewers, and definitely they will follow what you have said. Thank you very much, Dr. Goyal, for joining us. Now, I would like to introduce my two very eminent guests. And what I will do, I will introduce both of them simultaneously. Then one by one, I will be putting questions to both of them. And then we will have an interactive type of session. Because this time our format is different. Instead of I speak, because I want that let the doctor should speak, and they will give their views, what is happening today. So my first guest is Professor Dr. Amita Jain, MD, PhD, FRC Path, FAMS. She is the Professor and Head, Department of Microbiology, King George Medical University, KGMU, Lucknow. She is the Nodal Officer for Laboratory Technical Support in COVID Testing for Uttar Pradesh. She is the in charge of COVID Testing Lab, KGMU. She is the member of National Tuberculosis Expert Group. She is the member of Subject Expert Committee, Antiviral Microbial, MOHF, Government of India. She is the chairman of Institutional Biosafety Committee of KGMU. She is the member Research Committee, SGP, GIMS and RML, PGIMS, Lucknow. She is also member of IEC, KGMU, Lucknow. Her research interest is in tuberculosis and virology. She is having 8 Indian patent and PTC. She has published 286 papers in national and international reputed journals. Now, she is our first guest. Welcome, Professor Amita Jain on our show. Now,
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Now, I would like to invite and introduce my next guest, and she is Dr. Rachel Daniel. Dr. Daniel is MD Medicine, DNB Medicine, DNB Cardiology. She is the Chief Interventional Cardiologist at NS Memorial Institute of Medical Sciences, Kollam, Kerala. She is recipient of A.V. Gandhi Award for Excellence in Cardiology for the Best Research Paper in 2007. She is National Gold Medal winner for DNB Cardiology in 2007 from Kerala Institute of Medical Sciences under Padam Shri Professor Dr. G. Vijayaraghavan. She is interested in preventive cardiology. She is actively participating in World Health Day activities for last 12 years with Heart Day Run, thereby propagating Heart Day message. Being COVID this time, her team has prepared an exercise video for heart patients. Welcome, Dr. Rachel Daniel on our show. Now, my question goes first to Professor Jain. Professor Jain, although you have joined now, but what Dr. Goyal has mentioned before you have joined Dr. Ramin Goyal, because he is based in Mumbai, and he says, yes, the situation is scary this time. Although whatsoever the media reports are coming that there's less death, etc. But he says that the deaths will be not immediately, it will occur after 2 or 3 weeks. So we should not be assured that no deaths will be there, so it's not scary. We have to take full precautions and whatnot. Now, I am asking you, you are a microbiologist. As a microbiologist, you have watched COVID not only in media, but probably under microscope also. What explains current wave across country?
Yes. Firstly, thank you for very, very kind words, sir. To your question, there is no one explanation. There are several explanations, and we have to look into that, what is happening. COVID started rising in country in March 2020. We saw a wave in August. The peak of the wave was actually in September. So there was a gradual rise we saw, and then there was a decline, and that was one big wave. There were smaller waves in some part of the countries, but majority of the places after this wave, people thought that we are done with it. So, and then the vaccine came. So the one was that the positivity rate has really gone down. People started closing the ICUs, they started closing down the labs, normalcy started returning to life. Number two, the vaccine came, which also gave a sense of safety and security to the population. But we forgot that we are racing against the virus. Virus is very smart, and to outsmart the virus, we have to be very, very safe and clever too. So few things which came to my mind that why is this happening? Number one, this peak is very sharp. So when it came, the cases are just rising, exponential rise. Number two, as Dr. Goyal, you said, had already mentioned that there are fewer deaths we are seeing. Number three, what we are seeing is also that people who are vaccinated are getting positive at times. Number four, we are also seeing that people who had one episode around September, August, September, or before that are also getting this thing. So we have to understand how this virus is behaving. There are few things to it. Number one, virus is changing. So the vaccines which are available, are they effective against all the strains which are currently in circulation? We do not know. We also do not understand at this point of time, honestly, that how many types of viral strains are circulating in the country. We have found those variants which are seen across the world, UK variant, South African variant, Even we are talking about Indian variants and all, Brazilian variants. So all of them have been detected in country and they are circulating freely. Vaccine may not be as effective against these as it was against the wild strain, which was originally detected in China. So we have to be clever enough and to understand, do we need to change our vaccine frequently as we do it for flu as the virus changes? So this is one point. Secondly, when the vaccine came, cases started coming down, people's behavior also altered. They forgot that if you do not continue to practice what we called that time was COVID appropriate behavior, this may not work. Because for reaching to the herd immunity, you have to have at least 70% of the population which is immunized. Since the vaccine is only for the people who are above 18 years of age, to get a vaccination status where our 70% population is immunized, we have to have literally everybody who's above 18 years have to be vaccinated, because 30% of our population is below 18 years. So they cannot get the vaccine. So practically virus will keep on circulating if we do not vaccinate everyone who is that. Vaccine rollout is not 100%. It's very patchy. People have vaccine hesitancy. They are not coming out easily to take the vaccine. Initially we started with, because vaccines availability also need to be checked, we started with giving to people, healthcare workers 60 years plus. Now we have come down to 45 years plus. So vaccine rollout in the country is still patchy. There is hesitancy. Currently less than 0.5% of Indian population is vaccinated. So what is herd immunity will probably come through the natural infection, and vaccine, the herd immunity through the vaccine will take very, very long time. Then the behavior, what was happening, suppose when we were not vaccinating people, the risk I have not taken the vaccine, I was sure that I'm not protected. Suppose I said, no, I'll be meeting only one person at a time, no more than one person. And I was taking a calculated risk, let's say of X. No vaccine is 100% efficacy. Best of the vaccines, like measles vaccine, are 99%. So some people who are immunized also remain unprotected. So let's assume that there's a situation when we have 100% vaccination, 70% of the people will get the vaccine, the immunity, it's 30% will not get the vaccine immunity. Now, after getting the vaccine, I decided now I'm protecting, I can meet people. And instead of one person, I started meeting 10 people. Now, out of this, that 10 people, 3 are not immune. So my risk has tripled. The risk, which was 1 out of 1, has become 3 times more. Now I'm exposing myself to 3 people who are not immune. So I have tripled my risk of getting infection, and the effect is visible. What we are seeing is lot number of things. We are getting what I initially said, we are getting people immunized. People are taking 1 dose, not going for the second dose. No vaccine is 100% efficacious. Secondly, people are not coming out for vaccine. What is going to happen? I'm not going to be protected. People are dying due to vaccine. Lot number of like myths are also circulating. I think time will, once again, time has a lot of lessons to teach us. One of them will be that does it really help? We are not getting severe infection after vaccine. This will be one question we are looking for the answer. Number 2, how long this peak will be and when this will be over. There are a lot of prediction. I am sure all of us have seen that there was this thing when they said that by mid of April, there'll be a peak, and after that it will start declining, and by end of May, we will be through this wave. Let's hope for the best, and if that prediction goes true, I think we are almost there at the peak. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Professor Jain. I will come back to you again. Now, my question goes to Dr. Rachel Daniel. Dr. Daniel, you are from Kerala. Now, my question to you is, in Kerala was a success story in COVID control, but in the first wave. But along with Maharashtra, it is considered as a center for COVID resurgence. What went wrong, Dr. Daniel?
As the other two discussions have said, Raman sir and Professor Jain sir, we are gone through the first week, and we have learned many lessons out of the first week. We are one of the countries in the world which have started lockdown, and we don't know the full success story of lockdown. But what we got out of lockdown is we got some preparatory time to get ourselves, the health personnel and the infrastructure to develop because of the lockdown. There are so many disadvantages of lockdown, but leave alone. For the matter of COVID, we have got, at least we bought some time to get ourselves prepared. But same time, we should know that the virus also gets some time to get prepared. The viruses are very, very well known for the genetic variants, and they always try to survive in difficult situations. And for the last, the lockdown started in March, and we are out of lockdown in May, and now it's almost going to be 1 year. And as Sir said, Kerala has gone through a big success story, though we have a lot of cases. Our government sector has equipped so much that we have managed around 90 to 95% of the patients in government sector very successfully, though, and we could keep the mortality less than 0.5% till now. But what happened, as you said, is again the second week is affecting Kerala worse than the first week. And there are so many reasons for that. One, as everybody said, we are also in Kerala, as you know, the literacy rate is very high. We are using masks. The government has put so much restrictions so that people are religiously following most of the restrictions. But you can see that the elections came, and Kerala is a very politically oriented people, and so many processions and all this happened, and even all the political leaders who should lead us have come in they themselves are in the crowd, and people started following them. And it resulted in the resurgence in one way, not because that is not only a reason because of the world itself is saying, but that is one reason in Kerala that the crowding has gone up tremendously over the last 30 to 60 days. The Panchayat elections and all these two elections have caused a lot of resurgence of the cases in the Kerala. And another factor is, as everywhere it happens, we are fatigued with the restrictions. People are very much fatigued. We are taken away by so many of restrictions, and people thought whatever is going to happen, even if we die of COVID, I don't mind. I want to be in the crowd. That sort of change in the mentality really happened not here alone, in the rest of the world also. The mentality of people with the restrictions, the directions given by the government policies, all these have changed. And one thing. In Kerala, as you said, we are seeing less of COVID mortality cases, but that doesn't mean Kerala has low mortality, because in Kerala we have treating COVID. Initially, we have a lot of hospitals caring for COVID. Now, once the case numbers come, many have shut down, but again now everything is open. But COVID-related mortality are high in Kerala, because whatever comes in the statistics are in the first 10 days of once they become positive, and maybe another 1 week. After that, whatever deaths come, it is not counted as COVID death. That is happening everywhere also. But we have to understand that in Kerala, it's a hub of many comorbid conditions. Kerala is supposed to be the diabetic capital of this world. We have seeing, I am treating COVID patients in private sector. Kerala has started from August only, and I'm seeing this COVID patients I'm looking after the COVID ICU from September till March. Now I got fatigued and I hand over to my pulmonologist. But for the last 6 months, I am full charge of the COVID ICU in our private hospital, and we have treated almost 1,500 COVID patients. And what we understood that the mortality happens, majority of the mortality happens after second and third week, and that is not counted as COVID death. Oh. It is COVID related, but it is not in the statistics. It is not COVID death, but it's COVID related death only. That we health professionals know. So what happens is all the diabetic patients, all the kidney diseases, all the heart patients, all the heart failure, all will be put negative in the rapid antigen test, or it will be counted negative, but they will die maybe in the second or third week. And it is very pathetic, because So the real picture, as you said, it is only the tip of the iceberg. The mortality is not low. It is only the tip of the iceberg. And what happened is that when we gave so much trust to the COVID treatment, I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but we have ignored so many non-COVID factors, non-COVID illness, because in non-COVID illnesses are causing more mortality than COVID illness even now. Because what happened is we are giving all stress. Even if a patient comes with heart attack, even a patient has got cancer or any heart failure, if the COVID antigen is negative, positive, or the RT-PCR is positive, then he is doomed. He won't get the primary care. He will be put in the COVID ICU, in one corner of the COVID ICU, and no consultant, no serious treatment, whatever he would have got, even if he is COVID negative, is not taking. That is a very mystery. That is a very most pathetic situation, Kerala. If it is positive for COVID, even you are denied of the basic most of the advanced treatment facilities in major hospitals in India. So we are going through many unusual situations, and we are mostly helpless. I don't have an answer whether we should treat them in no, but it's a very unusual situation, and hope we'll come out of the situation. That's only the way out.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. But what you have said is really scary, that the deaths which are occurring after 2 or 3 weeks are not in the termed as a COVID death, and they will be given a non-COVID death, but basically they are due to the COVID. So the figures which we are seeing is nothing but it's just a eyewash, I can say in that way. It's a very, that's what Dr. Goel has also mentioned, that transparency is required. This means that transparency is required for each and everything, not only for vaccination, for even how the treatments are going on and how the COVID deaths are reported, because the people feel that today the WhatsApp university is circulating that this variant is very weak. So don't be scared. No deaths are taking place. The percentage of death is less, while in comparison to the earlier one. So one has to be very careful. Thank you, Dr. Daniel, for opening our eyes. I'm sure our viewers who are watching, they should be careful and not take any chances, and don't think that the whatsoever we are reading on the WhatsApp is gospel truth. Thank you, Dr. Daniel. I will come back to you again. Now my question goes to Professor Jain. Professor Jain, you are from UP. Now, how come, except the last 2-3 days, UP is the biggest state in the country, and the reporting of UP is constantly reporting less numbers than smaller states. Even a few days back, it is less than Kerala or any other states, even the nearby states like Delhi, very small. Why? What is the secret of your UP's success for containing the coronavirus or the reporting or the disease under wrap? Professor Jain, please.
See, regarding reporting, I'm pretty confident that they are reporting correctly. They are testing also, they are doing very large number, because since I see the report every morning, it goes after we look at it. And every day, almost 2 lakhs of people are being tested. I understand this number is much less looking at the population of UP, but this is not very less also. This is highest in the country. We are testing highest number of people every day in the country. So why it is low? Because I remember even in the first wave, UP did not get that many number of cases which were seen in Delhi or Maharashtra or other parts. So UP is thickly populated. UP is doing correct testing. UP is doing lot of testing. UP is reporting. I really don't know why. But one thing is definite, that what is different, I don't know. People are going out, they're going out without mask, everything. They are not taking vaccine in spite of repeated requests. So all this is happening. It's countrywide. Still we have lesser number of, if you look at the proportion population wise, but some of the big cities in UP are not doing that good. I think smaller cities have lesser number of cases. Like Lucknow, yesterday we had more than 4,000 cases. If we look at the population wise, it was just as bad as Mumbai. So bigger cities have issues. I think Kanpur is not doing good, Agra is not doing good, Varanasi, Prayagraj, all these cities which are larger cities are having large number of cases, but smaller towns and smaller districts somehow are still under control. So maybe that's because of the population there and whatever the reason.
See, Professor Jain, the view which are coming from the media, all the facts are coming. Agra, a number of cases are less even than Mathura. Mathura is far more smaller city than the Agra. But what people are saying that the testing is only taking place when somebody has to go take a flight or to go to another state where they require the RT-PCR. One. Secondly, sorry?
Not true.
Okay. Secondly, the percentage of the fake negative report of RT-PCR. Now, as a microbiologist, now we would like to know from you, somebody says it is 14% and some expert says it can go up to 44%. What are your views about the RT-PCR false negative reports which are coming?
False negative reports, like we can understand any test has limitations, let's say 2%, 3%, up to 5% is okay. But then they have 5% of false positive reporting also. So like looking at the sensitivity and the specificity of the test which is available, RT-PCR has its limitation. We may miss some time. But if you're saying that we are collecting the wrong kind of cases, we are collecting in wrong way, we don't have a good sample, we are reporting incorrectly, I do not agree with that. Reason being, all the labs, there are around 100 PCR labs which are now functional in UP. Most of them are doing, they have fairly good experience, they know how to do it, they are under quality control. I don't see any technical reasons for doing that. And I'm sure the kind of political commitment UP has currently for this disease particularly, I don't think it should happen. Then maybe I'm ignorant, but I don't think I'm that ignorant.
Okay. So let's hope that, but the only thing is, okay, I will come to you after I will ask the Dr. Daniel. Dr. Daniel, you are a cardiologist. Now, as a cardiologist, are you seeing more heart attacks in COVID patients, or it is the same whether it's COVID or non-COVID patients?
For the last, sir, for the last few months, which I looked upon the COVID patients in the ICU, I haven't seen my disproportionately high heart attacks in COVID. But at the same time, some patients who have come with heart attack have tested positive for COVID. That I mentioned now. When we are taking up the patient for an angioplasty, if we test it, then they'll find it. But as of now, I'm not in a position to scientifically say that heart attacks. I haven't found so many heart attacks unusually high in COVID compared to non-COVID patients. That is the purpose.
Okay.
Yes. But once the vaccine has come, some fear has come up, and once a patient comes with a heart attack, we'll ask them, when did you take the vaccine? And we have seen some patients who have taken the vaccine and come with heart attack. But I'm not saying that it is due to COVID. It's due to the vaccine. But maybe we are taking more vaccines, and that is to the older population. So proportionally, they are the patients who are mostly suffering from heart attacks also. So we can't, there is an absolute causality cannot be proved at this moment. So COVID is well known to produce clots. So whether COVID or the vaccine, whether it's causing clots, we are not in a position to comment.
I mean, that's what I want to know, because there is a media reports about the blood clotting. And you know that blood clotting means that it is going to impact the heart immediately. So are we seeing that types of cases? Being a cardiologist, are you seeing any such type of cases where the blood clottings are happening more than what is without or with vaccination? Because people are not going for vaccination. They says, no, the report says this happened. And every day new reports are coming in the media. People are taking that, which is very, because one should take the advice of a medical expert, not their WhatsApp university. What do you say about that, Dr. Daniel?
Sir, we have done angioplasty for 3 post-COVID patients. That is, they have COVID, and immediately after within 1 month of the COVID, they had heart attack, and we had to do angioplasty in 3 patients. And for after the vaccine, we are seeing quite a few number of patients with heart attack, but as of now, I'm not very sure whether it is due to the vaccine, because that is very untimely to comment on that, because we should have a scientific data, because comparing the large number of patients getting vaccinated and the proportionately small number of heart attacks coming out of that, otherwise also these people might have a heart attack at that time. So whatever data available now, we are not in a position to say that vaccine produces flaws.
Okay.
But COVID definitely produces flaws. But vaccine is not, we are not in a position to make a statement that vaccine makes flaws.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Daniel. I will come back again to you. Now my question goes to Professor Jain. Professor Jain, do you foresee a variant booster now? And what if there are 2 more variants in next 6 months? What is going to happen?
I don't know. But the fact remains that we have to play a smart card. We have to understand the virus now, and we have to keep on changing our vaccine as per that. Maybe because people who have taken the messenger RNA vaccine are falling less sick in comparison to those who have S protein vaccines. And S proteins are the ones which are varying constantly. So I think we have to take care of the vaccine. We have to kind of update our vaccines from time to time. And I'm sure very soon we are going to hear about it from the manufacturers and the scientific communities that what has to be done. So I think it's the time to give it a real actual shot and bring out a revised version of the vaccine. I think it's the time to.
Okay. I am sure you have been vaccinated now by now. How safe do you feel, Professor Jain?
I don't know. I think I have a lot of faith in everything, including the vaccine. I have a lot of faith in our scientists. I have a lot of faith in government. I have a lot of faith in God, and I have a lot of faith in myself. Even when I fell sick with COVID in August, I knew I'll save through. My age doesn't favor it. I knew it, but still I knew I'll come out clean, and that's what happened. I feel safe, but all said and done, I never let the precautions go. I work in lab. I work this is a crisis time. I might be spending 12 to 14 hours in the lab itself, but guarded. I think that's very stupid. Like you don't take the precaution and then you blame the vaccine and the things like that. As I rightly said, if you let the guards down, then you are exposing yourself to the same risk which you were when you were not vaccinated. So vaccine with the mask, I'll say mask, that means the proper attire. I think I feel protected.
Okay. Now, same question goes to Dr. Daniel. You have been vaccinated, I'm sure, by now. How safe do you feel now?
Yes, as Madam has said, it's definitely a protection for a severe disease to us. That's the only guarantee that even the vaccine makers are saying. That says that doesn't say that you are not in a position to rule out all your protective measures and take away all your protective measures. That just says that you are protected from a severe disease up to around 95% and mortality almost 99 to 100%. As of the variants, genetic variants which we are available, which we are familiar now, but leave alone the other few genetic mutants which we are mentioning. But that is the protection given by the manufacturers, that we are protected from a severe disease, maybe from deaths. That is only possible, but the chance of getting infected remains almost same. There is say that you are 75% protected out of these vaccines. But what I say is, Madam said, once you have vaccine, I think Professor Goyal mentioned that once we are protected, we are feel so comfortable that we will be exposed to one people. We will be going around for meeting 10 people or 20 people. What sort of protection we are having? So once you are overconfident that the vaccine are going to protect us, then we are doomed, because we are exposing ourselves to the virus more and more, and the chance of getting infected is more. So vaccine is not a protection for infection. Vaccine is only a protection for a severe disease. So once you get infected, you are still a chance that you can communicate to the family members which were not infected, or they still have a chance to get severe disease. So vaccine is not a one way or a remedy for everything. You have to take all the precautions which we were taking before vaccine, even with the vaccine. That is my advice. But I'm very confident that now I got vaccinated, I feel more confident to treat patients with all the gadgets which I was using previously also.
Okay. Professor Jain. Professor Jain, are you there? Yeah. Professor Jain, now this variant, people says that it's a UK, someone says Brazil, South Africa, and even Indian variant. And they are spreading very fast, faster than the last time.
Appears
Now,
so.
so when this is the condition, are these variants will be in future, it will be more dangerous type of variant we are going to see, or there is a WhatsApp university again saying, no, the mutant will be less dangerous and it will lose its potency. So gradually it will become less potent. So no one should worry. What you say about this?
So I don't know. We can only have the interpretations from whatever we have learned in past. Corona had two variants which emerged in past, and they were causing very severe acute respiratory illness, like MERS and SARS. And both of them did not spread faster. Reason being, they were killing their host. So anybody who was getting infected, 50% of them were dying. So any pathogen which kills most of its host very quickly does not spread very far. So to spread very far, the pathogen has to keep its host alive also, unless it will not spread, and unless it will be kind of everybody is infected at the same time. It's a chronic illness like of a thing. So looking at that, I'm sure it will keep on causing the kind of illness it's causing. These are the variations of the genetic small changes which may change some proteins here and there, and that happens with all the viruses. They keep on changing themselves. No virus standard, especially those viruses which have the surface proteins and envelopes, they keep on changing themselves. SARS is relatively a stable virus. It's not a very coronavirus is not an unstable virus like influenza virus. That's a very unstable virus. So it will keep on changing. I'm sure the similar kind of illness will keep on spreading. Spread maybe due to virus, but not necessarily due to virus. Spread, like we may be responsible for this fast spread because we have really let our guards down. So in case we would have kept our guards in place, probably the virus would not have spread that fast. So virus can be one reason, but our behavior is also one of the reason. So looking at all that, I think we have to keep a watch. We have to keep looking at what is happening. We cannot be very sure that it will be killing more or it will be spreading more. Very difficult to say at this point.
But you are saying about the behavior. Whose behavior? Why we all blame the people at large, public at large? What we are seeing? The Holi was celebrated at Mathura, where the UP government has funded the money. Everybody was knowing that the second wave was knocking. Holi was at the last week of March. And already it was written that the pandemic is going to repeat in a very big way. Why that was not banned at that time? Kumbh is still going on. Now question is, if once our Dr. Daniel mentioned about the election, because UP has not faced the election, but now also the elections, the local panchayat elections are going to take place. But in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Assam, and Puducherry, when their elections were there and so much gathering, thousands of lakhs of people were there, whom to blame? Why we blame only the public at large? My point is
no, sir. What is public? Public is, we all are public. I mean, I'm no different from public. When it comes to me, myself, my behavior is not just the same what we expect from public. So what is public? Public is nothing different. Whom to blame? I think this is this question is not for me to answer. I think the representatives from the government should take this and they should be answering this question. I think I'm not the right person to take this.
I understand, but the thing is, as a doctor, like earlier, the Dr. Goyal has mentioned one point, and he says this is the right time when the government of the day should involve the medical experts from all over India, take their expert opinions and see to it. See, I will give you the example of UK. UK had a very bad time in the both the times, first wave and the second wave. In the second wave, they put a lockdown, and still UK is under lockdown, and they are going to start now reopening from the Monday, now 12th. Now, from December, they have put on lockdown. They controlled, and they put the vaccination on the top priority. They procured the vaccination, all types of vaccine from everywhere, whether it's Pfizer, every vaccine is available in UK. And it has been given free of charge to everyone. More than 55% people have already been vaccinated. You mentioned a figure of 0.6%.
0.5.
0.5. That is the both the doses. Single doses is about 6 to 7%.
Single dose is more than that.
More than that. But 0.5%, and it has come in the, again, I have to believe whatsoever is coming in media or WhatsApp University is that this vaccine is only going to be effective for 8-9 months or maximum 1 year. Let's take it 1 year. If we are, so after 1 year, now I have already been vaccinated, I have taken both the doses. It means I am again in the queue after 1 year, I have to take it again. But the persons who have not yet taken, they will reach, by this speed, the total vaccinated people will be hardly 10% or 20% in 1 year's time. Then what is going to happen? The herd immunity will never be achieved in India. So how we are going to defeat this virus?
I think herd immunity through the vaccination doesn't seem like a very near future possibility. It doesn't look like that. But you're looking at the second wave. I'm sure people will get herd immunity through the natural infection, if not through the vaccine, which is not, we are looking forward to. Reason being, there are a lot of deaths associated. So there are a lot of mortality associated, a lot of problems. I know we all of us must have suffered some personal experiences, and I know how tough it is to go through that. No answers actually. So, what you rightly said, I think one point, all the government policy should include medical professionals of high repute from across the country. That is very, very important. So the policy should not be made by the people in power or people who are not qualified medical professionals. That's right.
Yeah, Professor, you have, like Dr. Daniel has made a very important point. She says that the deaths which are occurring after 2-3 weeks are not being termed under COVID, while it is the COVID death. So this things cannot be, this is not been given or shared to the public until unless public will have not the fear psychosis, although somebody says don't create a fear, but until unless there is no fear, then the behavioral change will not come. What we are talking is of no use. Now, my question goes to Dr. Daniel. Please unmute, Dr. Daniel. Please unmute. My question you is that when this is the situation and then elections are taking place, have taken place in Kerala, so much crowd was there without mask and everything, why the medical body, while the expert medical body has not made a representation, why not they put an appeal in the newspapers or the media that, see, please look, why we are, let's have the elections, but we should have elections on media only, not in person. Mean to say, no rallies, no public address. You can address on television, you can address on or you can make your appeal on newspapers. Why we require the public gathering, a personal gatherings of whether Honorable Prime Minister or the opposition leader or your state chief minister, whosoever are coming? Why we require all these things? After all, as people are aware now who are our candidates, who are not, don't you think, like I will give you this West Bengal, now Election Commission has made, although it has made for some other reason, 5 days a silent zone for a particular district. Why not a silent zone for the entire constituencies? Only thing is, let the advertisement of initial who are the candidates, their details, etc. Let the election commission would have put it in the newspapers, on the television, that these are your candidates. Don't you think the medical fraternity should give this suggestion? Instead of I am giving suggestion, medical fraternity should say this is a very bad time. If we will not take care, what is going to happen next? Now I can tell you the report says even in the Tamil Nadu, where the elections are over, the numbers have started increasing. Before that, the number were decreasing, were not there. Why? Why this type of false reporting? After all, we are playing with a human life. We are not playing with a only for the votes or for this thing. What do you say about this, Dr. Daniel?
Sir, in Kerala, Indian Medical Association Kerala has cautioned about this second wave and has advised the government to continue all the precautions with utmost care, so that Kerala being a highly density population in the state, when we are going wreck like this with all the political parties going without any restrictions, it is going to happen. Indian Medical Association president and already have mentioned and have talked in public. But when it comes to these type of policies, this doctor fraternity is wide outside. So that is what the Professor Goyal sir also has said. We are mostly depending on administrative inputs than scientific advice. So when it comes to the administrative, these political parties, whether the left, right, or whoever is ruling, they are not different in when it comes to the cautions which a medical fraternity are saying. In Kerala, our case positivity rate was almost 2 to 3% before elections, and yesterday it was 10% was the case positivity rate. So this warning was given months ahead, but it is not working. When it comes to politics, I think we are far outside the field, and we are even if a literate population, highly literate population like Kerala are not seriously taking up the issue, they are thinking, oh, what is happening? Only 0.5% mortality. Otherwise, also these people will die. When why should we sit at home and all go away with all this entertainment? So even a literate population is not taking things seriously. Then we have to go through the crisis and learn it. That's the only way out. Now people have started little more scary about the situation, and people have taken little more precautions. Still we are much behind the virus. The virus has gone much ahead of us, and it started its all catastrophe is already done. But still, whatever has gone has gone. Now it is not time to blame anyone. Whatever has gone, whatever we should learn from the lessons what happened in these states, that we should correct it in the subsequent months, so that this virus is going to be with us till at least 2023. That is what the scientists are predicting. So at least 2023, we have to take care of this virus. And even if the wave is coming down little, don't be overconfident and do away with all the restrictions. We have to be very careful at least for the next 2 years. That is what the advice from us. That's all.
Professor Jain, do you agree what Dr. Daniel said, that we have to be cautious for next 2 years? Because earlier it was said that 2020, fine, whatsoever has happened, 2021 is going to be the changer and game changer, and we will have relief. But now this report, which Dr. Daniel is saying, that the experts are saying about 2020, 23, 22, 23, means 2 years more. Do you agree with this, Professor Jain?
I don't know what to say, but we have to learn our lessons from the history. And this is closest to 1990 flu outbreak or pandemic. So if you look at that, that lasted 2 years, full 2 years, lot of people, lot of lives were lost, lot of financial implications were there. Looking at all that, if we learn our lessons, 2021 is for sure gone, number one. Number two, virus is not going to go anywhere, sir. It has learned to live with human race. So virus is going to be here. What is going to be the severity? I do not know. Like what Dr. Rachel is saying has a point. Like if we say that virus is going somewhere, virus is not going anywhere. That is decided. Now, if virus keeps on changing itself and re-emerging in the form of pandemic, I don't think it's going to be as often as this, which has happened this. I think 2 to 3 waves, and we'll be probably through that. By that time, our immunity and our systems will learn, our body will also learn how to live with the virus. I think once we learn this lesson, probably we'll settle. It might take 2 years, it might take 3 years. So that's just a matter of time.
When I started last year my program, and one of the doctors said, I will not say doctor, one of the panelists said, let the herd immunity to be there in India, because the population of senior citizens like me are very less. Let them die. And why to close all the lockdown, etc.? Let the senior citizens, let them die, and everything will be fine. And he says, otherwise also you will see the deaths, you will see the loss of business, and it will continue for 3-4 years. Now I'm feeling, yes, what he has said is in one way is right, that it is not going to last, because fatigue everywhere. After all, just think of you people. You are working for last 1 year, as you have mentioned. Dr. Rachel has mentioned. Dr. Goel has also mentioned. That we are fatigued now, working from for 1 year continuously, tirelessly, and still because of the irresponsible behavior of our leaders, the public at large, whosoever. Why the you also, as a medical doctors, you are also feeling why should we only suffer? We are working. After you all have, we have read so many media reports how the young children are waiting for their mothers cannot meet, whether they are working as a doctor or a nurse or a health worker, because they are working in a hospital. And how painful sometimes when there is a death in the family of the health worker. Now, when this is the situation, why not? My question is, why not all the Indian Medical Association or whatsoever the bodies are there must represent not only to the government, but public at large, this is the situation, or file a PIL or a petition to the Supreme Court, say very clearly, see, this is the situation. Either ban all these types of public functions, whether it's a religious function, irrespective of any religion, or any weddings. Now, to be very frank, if you want to know, there are reports. Then there are many big hotels are organizing weddings, and they says, don't worry, we will take care. You bring 1,000 people, where there is restriction of 50. But this is bad. This is what we are happening is now people have taken out the ways how to mend the laws. They are booking, they are saying, okay, we have 5 halls. You do one thing, keep a ceremony in the breakfast time in one hall. So 5 halls, you take all the 5 halls, different people did different this thing, and we will show to the administration. Now what the government can do? When we are responsible, as you have said, the civil society is also responsible. But don't you think that this is the time when, like if you see in USA, they suffered a lot, far more mortality, in spite of whatsoever advance they will say. First, one reason was they have lots of senior citizens, unlike India. And secondly, they were never expecting that this thing going to happen. And I think they are more in hygiene condition. My question to you is, Professor Jain, now is whether this disease is only for those who are in a very good hygiene in comparison to those who stays in unhygiene. Unlike tuberculosis, while the tuberculosis is more for the unhygiene conditions and not for the hygiene condition. What you say, Professor Jain, for that?
I do not agree with both the statements. TB does not see your financial status or your social status or your hygienic status. See, it's an airborne infection. So if you are going anywhere and there is TB around, you'll catch it. You may be staying in a 5-star hotel, and if the person who's serving you the food or doing the cleaning or your house is infected, you will get the infection too. So it's an airborne disease. Similarly, this is a disease of contact which spreads through touch and all that. So any class will get infection, both the infection. So the safety has to be taken not only for poor or upper people, everybody has to take care, and everybody can get infected. And since I work with patients with TB also, I've seen that every class of people come to the hospital for TB. There's still a stigma attached to the TB. So they may not be coming to the government settings, they might not be declaring their conditions, but they do get treatment. They go to the bigger hospitals where they pay more, they keep their identity undisclosed. All this might happen, but both the diseases are for affect everyone equally and badly. So I think we have to take care. No class is safe, no hygiene, because waterborne diseases like cholera and all are more, and hepatitis A and E, they are more like related to hygienic status than these airborne infections. So everybody breathes the same air.
Okay. Professor Daniel, you are being the cardiologist. What advice you want to give to the cardiac patients or those who have heart problems, that how during this pandemic time, what precautions they should take so that they will not, at least till the time this pandemic or this conditions are bad, when you say that even the hospitals are not giving that priority, and once the COVID is on, so that they will be safe even at home.
Sir, about heart patients during the lockdown, there was a lot of problem with many heart patients not getting the proper medicines. They were unable to procure the medicines at the right time. But since the lockdown has gone down, gone now, many are getting the proper medicines. They are able to collect the medicines. Initially, they were consulting us through telemedicine. Now, many are able to come and visit us and collect the medicine. So that sort of fear has gone away from many heart patients, that whether they will be denied of their treatment and the medicines. That part is gone. So my advice is get the proper medicines at the right time, eat it properly, and take adequate rest. And initially during complete lockdown, many are not able to do proper exercise, and many have started gaining weight because of the snacking and the lack of exercise. But once the complete lockdown has gone, and now it is they are free to move around their house and do at least a minimum exercise every day. And as you said, don't try to go into the WhatsApp university again and again, because that will create a fear complex about these heart patients. So try to get the minimum information needed, whichever already has government and the government officials are giving, and don't try to Google and see all these worse news, fake news, half truths, and pure fake, complete nonsense from this. So try to move away from the social media about the COVID at least, and try to entertain yourself with good news during this time. And about the vaccination, all heart patients should take vaccination irrespective of the heart condition. Everybody is calling us whether I can take during I have done angioplasty, I'm taking the blood thinners. But as of now, there is no contraindication. Everybody should take the vaccination, and there is nobody can go away from the vaccination. It's always safe to have the vaccination. About the blood clots, don't fear about the blood clots. As of now, there is no proof that vaccine will cause more heart attacks. So we have to take the vaccination. And during the years, during the time, evolving time, we'll have more direction from the concerned people. So we'll sit at home, do the proper food. Don't try to mingle with the public unnecessarily. Maybe you can have a sit and try to keep all the precautions. Don't remove your mask. Keep all the precautions which we are taking during the initial phase. Don't think that this virus is gone. We have to take the precautions. Even if this virus is gone, if you put this mask, you are protected from other airborne infections also. So keep all the protection gears with you always. Take the vaccine, be happy, do regular exercise, and have the medicine.
One last question to you, Dr. Daniel, then I will ask the last question to Professor Jain. Someone says that the blood thinners should be taken after the vaccination, especially this Covishield. What do you say about that?
No, sir, there is no scientific recommendation so far. There is
Okay.
no direction that you have to continue all the medicines you are taking.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, my last question to you, not question rather, any suggestion to government and advice to public, Professor Jain?
Very, very difficult to advise to people. I think they are all over-educated already, so they don't need advice. But I would say they should not shy away from vaccine. If they fall in the class for where government is giving the vaccine, they should go out and take it. And if those who are vaccinated already, they should not give away the mask. So protection is important and all that. To the government, I would like to say that I think the focus on COVID is right, but it should be more scientific. Like other than the political decision, it will be better if it is a medical decision to manage COVID. It will be better. So
Okay.
that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So today you have seen the medical expert, 3 fields we have taken: surgeon, a physician, and a microbiologist. And all they have given their views. Their views are very clear that we have to, the civil society have to change their behavior. We have to follow the protocols given by the government or by the medical expert. We should not blindly see and faith on the WhatsApp university. We must consult the doctors. We must be keeping all that social distancing, wearing the mask, etc. We must go for the vaccination. Don't go for the whatsoever reports are coming. And please, for the God's sake, for the safety of your own family, your own children, please don't celebrate the things in a big way. You can celebrate after every year. Why to celebrate? Birthdays will come every year. Please try to restrict your things. Thank you very much. And today's program, which has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, Newsgaon se Samvad Sarocar News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring to you everyday new topic. And our tomorrow's topic is role of youth in leadership. And our chief guest is Mr. D. Shivanandan, IPS, former Director General of Police, Maharashtra, Mumbai, along with the 5 to 7 youth who will be participating, and we will discuss about the role of youth in leadership. Thank you very much, Professor Jain. Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel, and thank you very much, Dr. Goel, although you have already gone for your meeting. So thank you all, and thank you all the viewers. I'm sure that today's program is quite enlightened. Please, please, please try to wear the mask whenever you are going out and keep the social distancing. Thank you very much.